Now that's significant. The Market Research Podcast.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining us on this latest episode of Now That's Significant, a market research podcast. This is your host, Michael Howard, the head of marketing at Infotools. Today we're joined by Jodi McGee, co-founder and chief insights officer at Inquisitive Insights, a woman-owned business that performs qualitative research for consumer brands. Inquisitive works with curious leaders and their trusted agency partners to explore preferences, attitudes, motivations, and behaviors. For much of her career, she has used data to build strategic communication plans and programming and offered counsel to senior leaders at growth companies. Jodi earned a marketing degree from Georgetown University, received her qualification in marketing research from UC Davis, and studied abroad at the Universidad de Autonoma in Madrid, Spain. Thanks for joining us on the show, Jodi.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me today.
That's all right. That must have been quite fascinating in Madrid, studying for a time.
I think that if everybody who has the opportunity to study abroad, they should absolutely take it. One of the great highlights of my college experience, and just a world, kind of person-shaping moment as well.
No, true. So I actually am from New Zealand, for those who don't know, and I studied one semester in Montana, of all places. So my university had an exchange program there, and it was quite an eye-opening experience. Lovely place of the part of the country.
It was I was right in Madrid, so really a great experience. Had a couple, good friends that became very good friends while we were there, because when you find yourself in a country where the language that is spoken isn't your native language and everything is just different, you really learn to appreciate those that feel familiar, as well as kind of dive into figuring it all out. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, nice. So, what's the most significant thing you're going to tell us today?
Well, what I'd like to tell you today that I think is the most significant is that successful brands, we're all in the business of building brands, and successful brands are trusted brands. And the way to understand the level of trust is through qualitative research.
So I'm sure marketers and market researchers will have plenty of opinions and studies on such a topic. What's your thinking behind such a statement?
Well, the reason that feels significant to me, and what I'm hoping to talk a little bit more about with you today, is that we know that trust is the greatest predictor of brand engagement. And you can't just simply measure trust by looking internally. You really have to go to the people who have the trust in the brand and talk to them and listen to them, most importantly. You have to understand not just what you think of the brand, but what your consumers think of the brand. And so in order to do that, to understand if people trust you, you actually have to ask them questions to get at the fact of whether or not they trust you. And so if you're not actively seeking out the opinions of your customers and understanding what they think, if they do trust you, you won't be able to survive and have success in the long term, because you won't understand what it is that they think about you.
What are some of the key things that you're looking for when you're talking about trust in a brand?
So we have actually, I'm as you mentioned in your intro, one of the co-founders of Inquisitive Insights. My business partner and I, Catherine Kelly, have developed what we call the Brand Trust Inventory. And what this does is it's a model that helps us understand and answer three critical questions for clients in areas of authenticity, capability, and empathy. And so we really try to use this model to help brand understand the opportunities, kind of the where they are, a diagnostic, as well as where they have opportunities with their customers to improve trust.
So what are some of the ways then you seek to understand a customer's authenticity? So
when we're looking at authenticity, and I'm happy to answer that question, and let me maybe just reframe it a little bit. What
Sure.
our inventory looks at is really the customer perception of the brand's authenticity. So what we're looking at there is whether or not customers believe the brand is honest, whether or not the customers believe the brand is credible, how they think and feel about the brand's reputation, and really just kind of all of the values that show up in the way the brand presents itself, whether or not it's being authentic. And so that we find to be really important in terms of a measure. If you kind of are thinking of a visual, we tend to think of it as a circle with kind of brand trust at the core, right? And so if you divide it into a nice little pie chart into thirds, one of those thirds is the authenticity third. And so it's really important to be as full in that space as possible for a brand to drive that brand trust. And so we ask the questions that really gauge how authentic do customers believe the brand is.
Okay, and I'm thinking about the next third of that pie chart.
Yeah, should we just move right along the circle here?
Why not?
All right, let's do it. Well, so then the next one is capability. And this really gets at, are you consistent? Is the brand consistently meeting the customer's needs? And so this is about understanding performance. It's measures such as, the quality of the product, the value that it's offering to its customers. Basically, like, does it work? Does it do the job that it's set out to do? Are customers happy with the way that their needs are being met by the brand, whether it's a product, whether it's a service, whether it's a, organization-wide effort. So in terms of capability, the question there is really about, like, can you do it, And so to continue our last journey to the final bucket on the circle, empathy is our third area that we measure in the brand trust inventory. And the empathy bucket is really, it's probably, we're probably not supposed to play favorites, but it's one of my favorites because it gets at how customers feel the brand feels about them. The questions there have to do with, do customers feel like the brand understands them? Do customers feel like the brand cares about them? Do customers feel like the brand is invested in their success? And so when we ask questions here, it's really about, does this brand exist in a vacuum where there's no relationship? Those brands typically aren't the ones that are successful and don't have the trust of their customers. The more successful brands are the ones that have a symbiotic relationship where the customer believes not only is the product going to do what it says it can do, authenticity, do that thing well, capability, but also that the brand cares, did it do the thing that we said it was going to do? So a simple example is laundry detergent, right? So laundry, a customer might be looking for a detergent that is going to get clothes clean, that meets their price point, provides the value that they want, maybe even have like a, ESG or values component where it, has a sustainability promise that aligns with their own values. Customers that feel like the brand truly cares about them also feel like, hey, the package that you used to send me this in, like, was always so great. It never ripped. It was, like it came to me well. And all of a sudden, I've gotten 3 packages in a row that have ripped, and I don't like that. Customers who believe that the brand is empathetic feel comfortable enough to take that feedback to the brand and share it with them because they believe that the brand will actually care, that they want to know that they want to listen to their customers. And so that's where we think there's huge opportunity because not every brand is sort of inclined to do this. We as market researchers, I think, have a lot of empathy. We talk about empathy. We know how important empathy is. But this is an opportunity area for a lot of brands because while they are very focused on pushing messages, developing their products, distribution, all the other aspects of business, the functions that they might do well, the listening component sometimes is deprioritized. And so it's often an area that we can help customers do a diagnostic through our brand trust inventory and then find ways to improve that empathy score so that customers feel more heard, more invested in, and ultimately that drives their trust in the brand which drives engagement in the brand. So it's not only a circular model, but it is also a big circle.
That point you made about listening, a lot of people or people can make assumptions. I guess there's a big danger in when you make assumptions about what you feel people are thinking, then there are dangers that you're moving into. Have you had any, obviously you've had some experience in this?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, what I hear you saying in that statement is what we find to be true in the marketplace is that brands, it's hard to be a brand marketer, right? You have to balance not only the aspirational aspects of kind of where you want the product to be, who you want to be, what you stand for, your values, all of the kind of next tier and like sort of forward looking, which is shifts your brain into a place of being very aspirational. I think the challenge that we see brands often face is because they surround themselves in that language and vision so much of the time is that they don't always ground themselves into where they are today. And so while they might, be out talking about being this, like amazing experience, right? Because everything is an experience, So to go back to my laundry example, right? It is a, futuristic laundry experience. What they're missing is that customers aren't feeling that way. What they really like is like, I love that package, and it does a great job because it always is able to hold up to whatever coming home from the store I put it through. So silly example, but illustrates the point that it's super important to understand where people's heads are, because where their head might be in today's reality could be super different from where the brand's aspiration and sort of marketing language is. So if those two don't match up, that really does create a gap in terms of how the brand will be able to succeed.
That's right. And we talked on this before we started recording. There are countless examples of brands who have had some form of event happen which has caused significant trust or damages or declines in trust in their brands. How would you go about helping a brand to move forward? So there's obviously what's been reported in social media, in the news, etc., and then there's also what customers are actually feeling themselves.
Yeah, we think, one of our core values is practical and honesty, right? So we always guide our clients to just being really purposeful and practical in talking to their clients, talking to their customers, and understanding, taking the time and listening. It may not give you the news that you want to hear or the perceptions that you want to hear, but it gives you a base from your starting point. It helps you as a brand understand where you need to meet your customers so that you can course correct in the right way. Because again, assumptions, a situation may happen, you might think that everybody's, up in arms about it, or it might just pass. But if the opposite is true, the actions that you take in the absence of information could double the damage, if not even more. It's so important to understand where your customers' heads are.
No, for sure. So, are you purely a qualitative shop at Inquisitive, or do you bring some other methodologies into the mix when you're helping brands to become successful?
Yeah, we are primarily a qualitative shop. My business partner and I, Catherine, actually met decades ago working for a brand strategy company. That's where we, kind of learned so much, in the day-to-day work about what kind of research was most helpful in terms of developing and driving brand strategy forward. So dually, we were developing our skills of brand strategy as well as insights. And what we loved about that piece of the work were the opportunities to really dig in and ask the why questions. More often, we saw that consumers or clients brands had some way to capture the quantitative data. There was something in place, even if it was baseline, even if it was infrequent, even if it was sort of borrowing something and using it as a proxy. Numbers are out there, it's business. What we found the gap was, and what we were really intrigued by and felt that we personally could always add value to a project by, was asking those qualitative questions to get at the kind of untapped or undiscovered information. And so as we set out to found Inquisitive Insights, that was always a clear starting point, that we would do qualitative research. Again, sort of through the numerous roles that each of us had, like many other market research professionals, you kind of wear a lot of hats before you settle into the one that ultimately becomes yours. We had experience and training with quantitative work as well. And so today, typically what we do, we consider ourselves a qualitative shop. We do use mixed methods when it's appropriate.
Okay, that was really interesting. So how do you measure the success of a project then?
Well, that's one of my favorite questions, because we always make it, again, because Catherine and I both had roles where we were, kind of doing different things before we came to founding this company. Often we found ourselves in a seat where we were either consumers of research, or in my case, sometimes a project manager that was wearing several hats on a project, managing the project, doing the discovery, helping inform the strategy. And so because we have, had the opportunity to sit on the other side of the table, one of the things that we pride ourselves on at Inquisitive Insights is really, really having those honest, candid conversations with clients at the beginning of the project to understand what it is that they're looking for and how exactly they're trying to use the data. So we think that taking the time to just really to go beyond just a simple objective, we think that writing the right problem statement is so important, because you can collect, we're drowning in data right now, right? The world is just full of data. There's more than we can consume. So it's more important than ever to understand what question specifically are we trying to answer here, and how are we going to use that, so we can both craft everything in the project appropriately and also package the findings and insights appropriately. So that's a long way of saying one of the ways we measure success in a project is by doing that up front, getting that really, really tight problem statement. And at the end of the project, not only answering the very tightly defined and specific question in the way that's going to be useful for our clients, but for me personally, it's always, I feel great at the end of the project when we have not only findings, right? Findings, but also insights. And insights that really kind of go beyond just simple doing kind of the mental gymnastics that get you to what were we able to extract from this? And so I know a lot of other people have written about this, but insights are really when it's maybe the first time you're hearing something, or you're hearing something in a new way, or there's some action that you can take as a result, or it shifts perspective. Those tend to be what separate insights from findings. For me, the thing that I'm not sure anybody else is saying, and it's one of the ways that I say something is an insight or define success, is if you have a whole new set of questions, right? You answered the question, and because you've answered that question, it allows you to move on to like, well, if that's true, what's the next thing that we can answer? And so it's for me, it's so fun to be at a findings meeting with a client and go from here's all the things that you asked us to learn and what we've learned, to being able right in the moment to have that next conversation about like, okay, so next, what's next?
So do you have an example of such a situation?
Yeah, we actually just recently we had a client a few months ago this fall where we did a mobile ethnography with them. It was, they're kind of the company that it's a manufacturer of a food product, and the company itself is new to insights. The team members there brought a lot of expertise and experience, but really the company is learning about it. So we got to do some really fun exploratory work through the mobile ethnography. And as we sat, we were able to not only kind of deliver information back to that they were going to take to their sales team, and they were thrilled because they were like, this is exactly what they need. This is going to help them sell in, just at a different level, really help establish them as the experts. Because other competitors aren't doing this kind of work. They aren't showing up with all of that knowledge. But what it let us do is we kind of explored the category that we were in. It allowed us to then say, okay, so if we were able to do this within one subcategory, let's talk about what we could do over here, because similarly, we've got that challenge. So in that case, it was a kind of a one-for-one set of questions, but they were really interested in, how do we take this to another product category, because they just found so much value in being able to have that data.
Sure. And I guess if you're able to answer your problem, so you learned what you wanted to learn, and then you move on to something else that's led from that, or resulted from that, you're possibly getting into new territory which your competitors haven't considered yet as well, which can open up market and possibility for you too.
Absolutely. And that's, kind of another extension from that same project that I was talking about is within the realm that we started within that initial category. They had some early hypotheses about, what some innovation might look like. And because of the work that we did with them, that again, with a small sample, it was qual and directional. It validated that there was something there. And so with that, they were able to go back to their one of their next steps that they're in the process of is talking with some of their R&D folks about, how do we explore this avenue based on not only kind of our expert opinion, that they had in the space, but also then here's a study that kind of shows that there's consumer momentum behind that as well. So again, really fun to see them have the confidence. I think that's one of the things that I love about the work that we do too, is good people have good instincts. And, more often than not, like good ideas are there and they're maybe just a little nugget, but this gives people the confidence to move forward with an idea because it's a stronger story to tell. It's people's brains work in different ways, right? Of like how you need to like kind of check boxes. So oftentimes it's it's official, it's third party, it's a story, it connects to this. So I just feel really good when maybe another way to go back to your question about the success of a project. I feel really good when the work that we've done with a client partner allows them to advance work that they're passionate about.
Mm. And I guess sometimes it's clear and obvious, the work that you've done and the success stories, but sometimes you also just need to step back and then just list out all of the things that you have actually done to show, hey, we have actually made a big impact here. It may not felt it at the time, but
yeah, maybe we're lucky. It feels like people are generally receptive to like we've made progress here. I personally think it's hard to tell the story when you confirm something that you already know. I think it's we always kind of secretly root for those like big exciting aha moments, or maybe when the reality is completely different than a perception that was held. But what we always say when you're validating things too, again, that allows you to spend no more time, no more mental energy on worrying about like, well, we're pretty sure this is true. Let's like hold a little bit of open space. So again, it's kind of that going from one problem set to the next, right? We can kind of cross off if there is a question there, because now we know definitively there is not. Moving on to the next thing, we can put more time and energy into working over here.
Right. So on that point then, how do you ensure you don't get confirmation bias creeping in with those validation efforts?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's something you have to be vigilant about. You have to, keep yourself and your methodology so that you are not allowing that bias to creep in. And I think the other piece in terms of eliminating bias is really education, right? We talk a lot about what we're doing and why we're doing it at the different touch points along the way, because we think it's really important. Sometimes methodology feels cumbersome or tedious, but I think the more that you're either educating end users, clients, or reaffirming the things that they probably knew at some point, but they're doing a million things, it's important to just kind of walk them through the like, this is why there are so many DIY tools out there, right? Like really, a lot of people could do a lot of things with what is available to them. And I think this is one of the reasons you continue to work with experts, even though there is so much DIY available. You and I were talking earlier about just AI and the huge impact that that's making in the entire business world. But again, the expertise that a research partner brings, that's one of the things that is invaluable because you're going to prevent that bias from creeping in.
For sure. So we're recording at the end of 2023. What kind of work or areas of focus do you see clients having in 2024?
Well, like I just mentioned, for us, mobile ethnography always is a steady request from clients. We tend to do a lot of those, which clients, if you're out there, please keep them coming. We love it. For me, I think it might be one of my favorite methodologies to use because it just allows you to get such rich data and data that you can use in so many different ways. I think in the same study, you can get really, white space thinking, exploratory work. You can get usage, you can get behaviors, you can get attitudes to it. It just feels like such a big bang for your buck. And the ability to leverage technology in a way that allows you to just do some amazing things. I always like to think back, like what would people like from 50 years ago think about what we can